Well, Rachel, Carlos Coy showed absolutely no emotion as the judge read the sentence of 45 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Now, at one point, Coy turned around to his family and he mouthed, "I'll be all right." Then he turned away. That's when Judge Mark Ellis called him up to the stand. He literally read him the right act. 2.5 hours total to convict Carlos Coy and sentence him to 45 years in prison. Coy did not show much emotion when the judge read his sentence.
Baby Bash wasn't there for my situation. You know what I'm saying? My mom was 13. How the could he be there? You know what I'm saying? My mom saw the Vlad interview. She was pissed. She wanted to call Vlad and do her own interview. You know what I'm saying? She wanted to tell her story. Because Bash was bashing her. You don't bash my mom, bro, and you lying on my mom. You speaking on my mom and you lying on my mom.
Carlos Coy was born on October 5th, 1970 in Houston, Texas. His father was an ex-Marine from the Falfurrias community in Brooks County, while his mother was a school dropout who dropped out of high school in order to marry his father. Unfortunately, the marriage crumbled only 3 years after Coy's birth, with his older sister Sylvia taking the motherly role in the household. During an interview, she often referred to herself as his mother/sister, explaining, "Because we come from a broken home, my mom always worked, but we were never on welfare. She always worked to save the house, and I took care of Carlos." Growing up with no father figure wasn't easy on Carlos. According to his sister, he took the divorce much harder than the older siblings, including his older brother, Arthur Jr. She remembers him being a little wild kid who was always getting into trouble. Due to his behavior, he bounced around different elementary schools as a youngster. Despite all of it, he took a great interest in skateboarding, self-proclaiming himself as the best skateboarder in the neighborhood, and was starting to become more familiar with music. At his mother's request, Carlos took up piano classes, but he didn't find it interesting, and not long after, he dropped out. Thankfully, he managed to find another instrument, violin, and the story was much different. According to him, he was something of a prodigy, gaining admittance to the music magnet program at Welsh Middle School. Within a year, he passed up several kids who had been practicing since kindergarten, with music teachers refusing to believe that he had been playing for only a year. Unfortunately, the family had to move to a different neighborhood, and his passion for violin soon became replaced with breakdancing. They moved from Southeast Houston to South Park, a neighborhood that was predominantly African American. During an interview, Coy recalled being the only Hispanic in his new Woodston Middle School. "I thought breakdancing was going to be my future. When that went out of style, I was left without a job." Despite ethnic differences, he fit in well with the young social rebels. By the age of 13, he started drinking, smoking weed, and doing crimes around the neighborhood, which also included selling crack cocaine. According to him, he had problems in school due to 3 Gs: gangs, grudges, and girls. In 1987, he was once again thrown out of high school, but this time for assaulting a female student. He started attending an alternative school, but at the age of 17, while still being a freshman, he decided to drop out for good. During an interview with Houston Press, he said, "One more year in high school and I would've went to jail for f***ing all of those little young." After he quit high school, life didn't become much easier than he expected. He decided to give it his best shot at finding an honest career, and within a year, he managed to get his GED and enrolled at San Jacinto Junior College. He wanted the business associate's degree, but unfortunately failed all 5 of his classes and ultimately dropped out. While his reasoning was that he never did his homework and a burgeoning interest in golf cut into his attendance, the reality was that he was now a full-grown man who had to do something in order to make money. His older brother worked at a chemical plant and found him a job there. While Coy gave his best, he quickly understood that that wasn't a career path for him. Due to low pay and sensitive skin, which led to him getting a lot of rashes, he left the job not long after. Unemployed again, Coy fell for a spiel to get rich quick, selling perfume to strangers at malls and door to door. Although he says he was good at it and sold a lot of perfume, he wasn't making the money. His bosses were. Fed up with all of it, he decided to turn to one job he's been doing since the age of 13, which was selling drugs. By the early 1990s, the crack epidemic was still a big problem in the United States. It emerged in the early 80s, and throughout that decade, it affected people from all the major cities, especially its inner city neighborhoods. With all of that in mind, Coy became a full-time drug dealer and would even boast about it later in life, claiming to have sold only the best uncut coke at the time. According to him, his crack dealing only lasted less than a year after he faced the reality of street life. During a couple of interviews, he mentions about being robbed by known killers at the time who didn't pull the trigger when they had him on the ground, awaiting the execution-style hit. I was tired of selling crack to your homeboy's mom. I was tired of looking at dope fiends being pregnant, trying to buy dope. Tired of seeing my homeboys getting shot and killed, set up for murder, getting jacked of their cocaine. Well, it's up for debate if that was the time he stopped dealing drugs. His life sure changed. After getting robbed of his cocaine, Coy sold the cars he bought with drug money and paid up the few grand he owed to his supplier. He moved into a trailer park owned by his mother and hunkered down. He lived off small loans from his brother and pork and beans eaten straight from the can. Thankfully, he kept his hustler's mentality and knew that there had to be a way out. Music would once again find a way back to Coy's life, but in a very extraordinary way. According to Coy himself, one day while sitting in his trailer, he was on the verge of giving up and getting back into his old ways. He picked up his phone and halfway to dialing his connection to get $100 worth of crack rocks, phone fell out of his fingers and he collapsed on his knees in a prayer. I said, Jesus, I don't want to slang dope no more. I don't want to work for a white man for $6 an hour and get treated like a worthless. I am a worthless. I just don't want to be treated like one. I didn't want to work for no champ change, you know. I've always known that I had something great in my mind. I could have been the best supervisor at Kmart. He asked God for a sign. Coy collected himself, picked up the remote, and zapped it at the TV. The first thing that popped up on the screen was an ad by the music agency, which read 3 huge letters: rap. While the legitimacy of the story could be questioned, he took it as a sign and started to get back into music. Gangster rap has already established itself as the most dominant subgenre, dominating the charts nationwide. With Coy's eventful life, it seemed like he was cut perfect for it, but he decided to start with a little bit different and unusual approach. Befitting his conversion in front of TV, Coy initially became a Christian rapper. However, his gospel rap lapsed within months after he went head to head at a party with a secular rapper. I did my rap, and people were laughing at me. Then this guy, who I knew hadn't done the kind of things I'd done in the streets or been to half of what I had, rapped that he was going to kill my mama and put her body in the trunk of his car. Everybody at the party cheered him. From that moment, Coy learned his first lesson: shit and f*** attracts fans. Milk and honey don't. Armed with his new philosophy, Coy wrote 6 songs. To set them to beats which cost money, he turned to his last $900 from the dope dealing. He ordered 100 tapes, paid $130 for them, and was in the business. He set the price at $5, and now the only part left was to find somebody who would give him a shot. The project was called Hillwood, which would later become his solo debut album. Thankfully, his experience as a perfume salesman and genius of street hustler came into play. He started hitting the lowrider car shows, car washes, convenience stores, flea markets, anywhere that he could find potential buyers. Even grandmothers got the pitch from the smooth-talking stranger. He would ask if their grandkids were fans of rap, and kept talking until he pocketed the money. He continued to sell tape around town for almost 2.5 years before opening his own record label called Dope House Records along with his brother Arthur. In 1997, Coy began working on his next album, which he released on March 3, 1998. The album was called Hustletown and soon became a huge deal for his success. The album spawned a hit single called Merry Go Round, which was not only an underground hit that broke him out of Texas, but also caught the attention of Southwest Wholesale, an independent distributor in Houston, which soon offered him a deal.
With the green voodoo, you love when my boys come and run us a choo-choo.
With his music becoming bigger and bigger, his family started grabbing their executive titles on Dope House Records, with SPM himself assuming the humble mantle of the Don of Dope House Records and music engineer with PhD in rapology. Throughout the next couple of years, SPM's notoriety spread, and soon enough, he carefully locked up the regional rap market. As his stardom grew, he edged toward becoming another cultural icon for expanding Hispanic awareness and started to see his role in quasi-messianic terms. He believed he was the one to bring them that respectability as his own commercial success mounted. He bragged about going from $400 a month in album sales to $40,000 monthly. After his release of Hustletown, SPM released 2 more albums, Power Moves, The Table in 1998, and Latin Throne in 1999. While both of them performed really well regionally, it wasn't until the release of his 4th studio album, called The Third Wish, To Rock the World, that he started to gain some mainstream success. The album featured one of his biggest singles to date, titled High So High.
I'ma roll 80 flows till them hoes start clacking. Put them on their back, gotta ask them what happened. Homie, what's cracking?
The single even reached the Billboard chart, peaking at number 50, which led to grabbing the attention of Universal Music Group. They saw a lot of potential in SPM and decided to sign him as an artist. The deal propelled SPM and Dopehouse Records to the next level, with the deal bringing in an advance of more than $500,000. Suddenly, SPM was everywhere. Texas Monthly magazine selected Coy as one of the voices of a new generation, labeling him as a breakout star on the rise. Throughout multiple interviews, he continued to talk about Hispanic heritage and tried to inspire the youth by saying, "A lot of Mexican American kids have low self-esteem, so I let them know that they can do more than just work like an animal for peanuts." The shows continued to grow each month, with Coy giving a speech before each one about the virtues of staying in school and away from crack, keeping out of gangs, getting a job, glories of families, and responsible parenthood. With his music career gaining massive momentum, he continued to release more albums. Under Universal, he released 3 albums, 2 in 2000 called the Purity album and Time is Money, and 1 in 2001 called Never Change. While all of the albums only reached mediocre success, it helped SPM to fully solidify his name in the music scene. But while his life was seemingly going in the right direction, touring across the country and reaching the heights he never dreamed of, the world would very soon get a deep dive into his dark and disturbing reality. On a hot 2000 July day, the deputy constable from Precinct 1 pulled up to the Dopehouse Records headquarters on Central Street. The officer carried court papers that were part of a past returning to haunt him. In April of that year, Jill Odom, a former girlfriend, filed a lawsuit seeking to have Coy formally declared the father of a son, Jordan Dominic Odom, and to have him begin paying child support. While every family has their problems, and in a typical scenario, it wouldn't raise any questions, this one was far from regular. You see, at the time when she filed the lawsuit, Jill was 20 years old, and the child who she claimed to be SPM's son was 6 years old, meaning that at the time when she gave birth, Jill had to be no more than 14, and Coy around 23 years old. Later during the testimony, she claimed that they started dating when she was only 13 years old, with him being her first sexual partner and using no protection during the act. After she got pregnant, Coy offered to marry her, but that was quickly nixed by her parents, who refused to have anything to do with him. Jill surprisingly didn't shy away from praising him for his informal support of herself and the child, saying if I needed something, he would get it. But her lawsuit hardly reflected that Coy had come up with the assistance on a steady basis. After DNA testing to confirm paternity, the settlement called for Coy to pay $28,000 in back child support and $2,000 more for Autumn's prenatal and birth expenses. He was to contribute $1,500 to a college fund for the boy and begin paying $900 monthly in regular child support. At this point, Coy's pension for an underage girl was merely an obscure civil matter and sadly, not the stuff of criminal charges, or at least not yet. Now 20-year-old Jill during the trial claimed that the rapper may not have known her specific age. Even back then, that argument was hard to accept. According to multiple news sources, Coy did know that she was only a middle school student because Jill testified during the trial that he used to pick her up after her 7th grade classes. Many years later, one of his close friends and label mates, Baby Bash, during an interview with Vlad TV, tried to clean up SPM's name by claiming that back then, the girl, who was only 13 years old, illegally worked as a stripper at a nightclub, and that when SPM met her, he assumed she was of age due to her working there, and that proceeded to one night stand. In my opinion, this has to be one of the worst tries to cover up your friend, and no man with right mind and intentions would ever mistake a 13-year-old child for a grown woman, especially back in the 1990s. But even according to SPM's Facebook fan page, during one of the interviews, SPM himself claimed that Jill wasn't a stripper when he met her and denied the claims that he met her at the nightclub. While it may seem like he got away easily from a situation the majority of people will find disturbing, to say the least, this was only the start of his worries, and this whole incident will continue to haunt him for years. With all of this starting to get attention from the media, nobody believed that SPM could be a child molester. After all, Coy had an adult partner, Gina Acosta, and together they had 2 children, a boy Carlos Jr. and a daughter, Carly. None of his inner circle supporters believed any of the claims SPM's name was dragged in, with one of them being a longtime friend and homie who had a 9-year-old daughter of his own, the playmate of 6-year-old Coy's daughter Carly. In 2001, during a Labor Day weekend, Carly, her friend, and their mothers, who had been close companions for several years, decided to make the best out of the weekend by going shopping and having dinner at Joe's Crab Shack on the Gulf Freeway. The children had so much fun that they didn't want the fun to end. As her friend's mother drove them home, Coy's daughter asked if the playmate could spend the night. Her mother reluctantly agreed, and soon the kids were romping around in the upstairs kids' room of the Coy's home. They played cops, danced, and finished the night by watching a movie. At one point in the middle of the night, Carly's friend woke up the mom and told her that her stomach hurt and she wanted to go home. Without hesitation, Carly's mom arranged a ride for her, and soon the kid was back home. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. Only a couple of weeks later, on September 25, 2001, Houston police showed up at SPM's Dope House Records headquarters once again and arrested Coy for sexually assaulting a 9-year-old girl. While at first glance, the story seems to be innocent, it couldn't be more opposite. When the girl finally reached home, she told her mother a whole different story. According to her, while both children were watching television, Coy entered the room and joined them on the sofa. While they were sitting there, he started touching and rubbing the 9-year-old buttocks as she was laying on her stomach. The girl later testified that she became momentarily scared. Soon, girls were dancing at Coy's urging to Destiny's Child Survivor. After some time, the girls went to Coy's daughter's bedroom, climbed into bed, and began watching television there. After Coy's daughter fell asleep, the girl, who has a history of insomnia, was laying in bed, awake, when she suddenly noticed Coy in the doorway. He walked over to the bed, reached under the covers, and again, started to inappropriately touch her. Eventually, he hustled around the other side of the bed, knelt down, and began performing oral. The girl testified that Coy persisted in this conduct for approximately 1 minute after she went to the bathroom and claimed to have slobber all over her. She found Carly's mom and told her the lie about her stomach hurting and asked to be taken home. Mom, unknowingly, arranged a car ride for her with Carlos himself. While they were driving back home, he told her not to tell anybody about what happened, complimenting that she was a great dancer and saying that he was going to open up a dance studio, making her a big star. After they reached home, the girl ran inside, while Carlos had a couple of words with the girl's grandparents, once again complimenting her dancing abilities. The following morning, the girl informed her mother about what happened at Coy's house, and the authorities were contacted to investigate the incident. On September 25th, Carlos Coy was behind bars, charged with aggravated sexual assault of the 9-year-old girl. Remember the case where Carlos was declared the father of a child he had with a 13-year-old at the time? Well, during an investigation, Assistant District Attorney Denise Ongson said that police learned about that incident and added one more charge of aggravated sexual assault. Carlos Coy quickly posted a bail of $30,000 and began counteroffensive to the allegations that were up to the music scene as well as his personal life. Some concert dates were cancelled, and Child Protective Service investigators temporarily banned him from contacting his own children. Around that time, rumors started to emerge that the 9-year-old's mother had put her up to say that she was assaulted because the mother had been scored by Coy after having an affair with him. The woman denied all the accusations. Baby Bash would also speak about this in the same interview with Vlad TV, claiming that while it was Coy's homeboy's wife, he didn't really care about it, and when they broke it off, she started blackmailing him. While awaiting trial, out on bond, Coy tried to get back to normal business at Dope House Records, but it once again didn't last long. Late on February 3rd, Coy left the company premises, climbed into a van with the homies, and headed north to New Caney. There, they picked up 2 females who he said had been pestering him with phone calls saying that they were bisexuals who wanted to meet the rap star. They wound up at a cheap hotel on the North Freeway. Coy insisted that he gave the group $100 for them to eat at a nearby Mexican place while he napped in the motel room. He swore that he woke up and found one of the females in his bed, although claimed that nothing had happened for the hour they were alone. Her story, on the other hand, differed. She said that they started kissing, and after a while, Coy took all of his clothes, and when he asked her to do the same, she complied. Then, they had sex. Aside from the conflicting stories, there was one big problem facing Coy, who was already awaiting trial on the earlier charges of sexually assaulting juveniles. These latest groupies were only 14 years old. They decided to press charges, and on March 6, 2002, the Harris District Attorney's Office filed an additional sexual assault charge against Coy. His bond was revoked the next day, and he turned himself in on March 7th. Coy's trial started on May 6, 2002. The sexual assault case of 2 14-year-olds were quickly dismissed not long after the trial started. A court document showed that the girl's medical records show she had chlamydia at the time of the alleged sexual assault, and that Coy never had the disease. She also claimed that Coy didn't use protection during the sexual encounter, which ultimately contradicted the facts. Coy's lawyers also said in the document the girl had previously tried to extort him for money, been diagnosed as bipolar, and also been expelled from high school for repeated disciplinary violations. Despite beating some of the claims, there were more than enough girls whose testimonies couldn't be disputed. There was a total of 8 women who claimed that Coy had sexually assaulted them while they were underage. During the trial, one woman testified that she was 12 when she first had sex with Coy. Although she initially told the police she was 14, during her testimony, she changed her mind about the date. In answer to a question by Coy's attorney, Chip Lewis, the woman said she felt no animosity towards Coy after they stopped seeing each other. Another girl also testified that she had sex with Coy several times at the age of 14 at Dope House Records headquarters. All 8 victims showed the jury one thing: a pattern. All of the girls were underage, with one of them having his biological son. While the list of victims was lengthy, the main focus was still on the trial of a 9-year-old girl. There was no physical evidence, no DNA samples, or anything else to independently link him to sexual contact with the child, and the whole trial was based on her word against his. During her testimony, at one point, she didn't remember what happened and even said she could have dreamed Coy touching her inappropriately. She would later take back her words and say that the incident was real. The girl once again told the whole story from the start, even mentioning the small details like Coy complimenting her dancing abilities. The police officer Ruiz, who was first to interview the girl after the incident, also became a crucial part of the trial and testified that during an interview, the girl informed him that Coy touched her and licked her and even described the location on her body where he did it. Carlos maintained his innocence to all the accusations presented in the courtroom except the case of 13-year-old. The case with the 9-year-old is something I know I can get past and win. The case of the 13-year-old is not winnable because he's definitely my son. The jury took a couple of things in consideration when coming up to a conclusion. All 8 girls who testified during the trial were underage, ranging from 9 to 14 years old. They also used lyrics and his gangster rap persona against him, taking into account his often glorification of the grimiest of crimes. Then, there was also an interview with Houston Press from 1999, which I already mentioned in the beginning of the video, where he said, "One more year in high school and I would've went to jail for all of those little young." When asked about it during the trial, Coy simply responded, "I might have said that." With all of this in mind, there was one crucial fact that couldn't be disputed: his child, whom he had with a girl who was only 13 years old at the time. It didn't take a genius to come up with a link between all the evidence presented in the courtroom and SPM. After 7 hours of deliberation in the hotel room for 2 days, jurors came up with their verdict.
And I guess you believe this, you are convinced you are a victim of your own celebrity in this situation. That if you were a plumber or a doctor or a priest or anything else but a rapper, you wouldn't be in this situation. Well, the fact is that there is only one victim in this case, and it is a 9-year-old girl. Now, that is reality, and you need to deal with it. All people in this state, in this county, in this city, and in this courtroom are equal in the eyes of the law. You received a fair trial, you received due process, and the jury has spoken. And it's time for you to face the music. It is the order of this court that you be delivered to the Sheriff of Harris County and to the Director of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institutional Division, where they will carry out the jury's verdict for 45 years. And a $10,000 fine will be given credit for your back time to see the bail.
Carlos Coy was sentenced to 45 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. His projected release date is set to April 8, 2047, with eligibility for parole on October 7, 2024.